I was gonna do a yo, but I was like, I don't know, I can't really pull off a yo. But either way, it's Jack Fritz hanging out by myself. A little Sunday night edition of the Iowa's podcast. Seltzer is, I believe he's still at a Fish concert. I believe he's still like hanging out and I guess having a good time at one of these Fish concerts. But when the Phils are playing the way the Phils are playing, and you have a game like that happened today, someone's got to step up and take the reins here. And, that's kind of what we're doing. So, thanks for everyone that tuned in. We're going to do, like 20 minutes here I got a lot of thoughts on the weekend, and then we'll get to some mailbag questions. So if you're in here and you have any questions, any thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. Get them in, and Tucker will kind of, Tucker will piece through what he thinks the best ones kind of are, and we'll go from there. But, a lot to get into because it was an eventful last kind of getaway day Sunday, and a lot's obviously going on with the team right now. I don't think they're playing bad baseball. I think obviously last week the big story was the team meeting. And, there's been a whole discussion, it feels like, here in Philly sports, or at least like on the radio and on Twitter, of like whether or not this team is back. And I think where I land on that is that, like, I think this team's more back than it's not. I think the whole idea that they got to go out and they got to beat all these good teams to prove they're back, or are they good enough to win the World Series? I don't know. Like, I think if you're holding them to the standard of like they got to win the World Series, and I'm there. Like, I'm in World Series or bust mindset. But I think this whole idea of like, well, now I need to see them beat all these great teams to really, really prove that they're back. I'm not there. Like, I think that this team has proven over the last week, albeit I understand Marlins, Nationals, but the way they played is different than how they've played before that. When they were really struggling, when they were really going through it, I mean, I thought that they lost their identity. Even today. Today was the first time, really. I mean, I thought they're gonna win Friday night, but it was that early season feel where I was surprised they lost. It was like they were down. The extra run that Hoffman gave up, I didn't need that. But I was like, they're probably going to find a way to win this game. That little fight is back. So from the standpoint of are they back versus are they not back, I'm way more in the camp that they're back than they're not. Like, I don't need go down, sweep the Braves, and then take 2 or 3 against the Astros to prove to me you're good. What we've seen and what we've watched over the last couple of games, I think we're seeing a team that is more focused, that is re-locked in, that has some belief. So obviously starting pitching, pretty good. Taijuan Walker was Taijuan today. Chris Sanchez was unbelievable. That's Chris Sanchez. I mentioned this on the final out on Friday night. Like, his ERA in his last 6 starts was over 6. And just in watching it, like, I just didn't feel it. Like, I feel like sometimes you can feel when a guy is struggling. With Chris Sanchez, I didn't feel that way at all. I think he had some bad outings, but overall, I still had a pretty good trust level in Chris Sanchez. I mean, that was methodical on Saturday. I thought that was really, really good. Like, he didn't have the strikeout numbers. There was a lot of contact, but it was so much weak contact. And no one was barreling him up besides the 1 home run that he allowed. But besides that, he was brilliant. He was in the strike zone. His last start against the Diamondbacks, he was all over the place. Actually, that's not even true. He was right down the middle. Like, he was pretty much change-ups right down the middle because he didn't have the feel for his fastball, and he got smoked. I mean, he got absolutely smoked. The Chris Sanchez that I think that we know, and the Chris Sanchez that they got the extension, like, that's what we saw yesterday. So you have him, you have Nola, who was good on Friday. I mentioned this as well. Like, it was one of those starts where if that's a better team, I'm not sure how it goes. Like, I thought he was a little bit off. He threw 111 pitches a season high in 6 innings. Not exactly the most efficient, but regardless, kind of did his thing. I look offensively, and for the first time in a while, I feel pretty good about a majority of the top half of the lineup. The lineup is one of those things where they go hot and cold. You're dying for this team to be consistent. Do I need them all to be hot at the same time? No. Like, it's awesome when they are, but we know that's not going to happen. But we can't have the lulls that they also had for about 6 weeks where it's like they're all just go cold at the same time. So I thought that Schwarber's continues to be really good. Didn't do much against the Nationals this series, but like he bought himself some grace, I think, with the Marlins grand slam. Trey looks great. I mean Trey had 10 hits. He had the home run today. He's not just looking to launch. He's not looking to just try to hit a home run all the time. And it looks like I love the story that Alex Coffey wrote about how he went into the lab and looked at his swings from the Dodgers and the Nationals of when he was consistent. And his whole thing was like, I had my highs where Trey Turner's arguably the best player in baseball when he's on his little hot streaks. But then he goes and he has like a 450 OPS month. And it's like, what the hell, man? He's chasing everything, like just looks like a totally lost player. So he's trying to find somewhere in the middle. And, he looked at some of the swings from the Dodgers and from the Nationals. And, I thought that was like, you saw, I think, a better hitter this weekend against the Nationals. So that was good. And then Bryce, fine. We'll get to the decision today here in a second. Bohm continuing. I mean, obviously he's on his on base streak. Castellanos has been really good. And those Stott and Marsh home runs were big today. Like get those guys going. Let them join the rest of the lineup. I think as a whole, I feel pretty good about where the lineup's at. Do I still have my big fear? Do I have a sinking feeling in my gut that they could go cold at any time? Sure. Like I think we all have that feeling. And until they are parading down Broad Street, I think we're going to have that feeling. But I think overall, they look like they are re-locked back in. They're not looking to lift and launch. They're not looking to all hit home runs. There was much more occasions over the last week where put the ball in play, string some hits together. I mean, that inning on Saturday where they poured it on, they finally got to Mackenzie Gore. Like, I don't know if that happens 2 weeks ago because they weren't doing that kind of stuff. This is a team, and we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. Like, this is a team that they should be more station to station with their bats. Like, Trey, I think, got a little home run happy. Like, Bohm's a doubles guy. Castellanos at his best is a doubles guy. JT's a doubles guy. Stott should be a doubles guy. Marsh should be a doubles guy. I don't need all of those guys trying to hit home runs. And I think one of the big takeaways of that team meeting is that I think it was a simplified approach on offense saying, hey, get back to doing what we are good at. And that is being more line drive, being more gap to gap, not trying to hit every baseball, not trying to take your team out of the slump with one swing of the bat, because it's not going to happen. Everyone had to come together, do the little things to get this thing back right. So the two of the three main portions of this team, two of the three main components of the baseball team, of the Phils, I feel good about. I really do. Rotation, step forward. Wheeler was phenomenal. I cannot wait to see what Ranger looks like when he gets back. I think we're going to get a good version of Ranger. Offense-wise, this looks closer to beginning of the season, kind of offense. The one thing, and I've mentioned this on the air, the one thing that is, I think, worrisome, and if there is a big reason why this team would come up short in the postseason, is the back end of this bullpen. Like, the Strom-Hoffman innings today, not super concerned about. They obviously were superhuman for a majority of the season. Matt Strom, superhuman. Jeff Hoffman, superhuman. Like, they were going to always regress. We knew that. Hoffman's got a little home run happy in the last 2 weeks, but overall, I still trust him a good amount. Strom, I still trust him. It's just like everyone else. It feels like it's turned into a bit of a heart attack. It's a bit of a high wire act. It's like Jose Alvarado, and it stinks because I love Jose Alvarado. I think Jose Alvarado gets a bad rep. I think he's a really good pitcher, and I think he's valuable. I just don't see it. I just don't see it with what his stuff is presenting on a night in, night out basis. Like, his stuff has completely declined. He was hitting 96 today on a sinker. He can't be hitting in 96. Like, Jose Alvarado is 101 with sink. Like, it's not 96. And then a cutter that feels like it's being telegraphed. Like, Jose Alvarado is such an important piece to this bullpen because you have Strahm you feel good about, and Alvarado, if Strahm's not available, has to be able to get big outs in the 7th and 8th of playoff games. Like, he has to be able to get those outs. Tanner Banks, who I really liked at the beginning when they got here, he's taken a step back, and he's a pitch to contact lefty. I'm having a little bit of flashbacks to 2022 Brad Hand. I think he's better, but like a little bit of Brad Hand. Like, Alvarado is just such a key member to this bullpen. And what we've seen, he's not striking anyone out. He's letting up a lot of hard contact. He's walking batters. And the stuff just looks like it's taken such a step back. And, you know, I just, outside of sitting him for a month, I don't know how it gets any better. And even if you sit him, what good does that do? They tried that. They sat him for like 2 weeks around the All-Star break. You know, it's just, he's so important. And of all the things that worry me the most about this team, it's the bullpen. It's 100% the bullpen. And we go back to the trade deadline, and I've thought about this the last couple of days. Like, if the price on bats was so expensive, and it seems like it was, and again, the price from relievers was obviously high. Not just trying to build the most souped up bullpen you could, and I think making a mistake in thinking that Alvarado was going to figure it out. Like, how they treated Jose Alvarado down the stretch run of the first half and coming out was like, yeah, he just needs more work. When I think anyone with eyeballs could see that his stuff had declined. And to not try to look for an upgrade. Tanner Banks is a Gregory Soto upgrade. He's not a Jose Alvarado upgrade. So, like, that's the thing that really keeps me up at night with this baseball team is the back end of the bullpen. And then you get to Estevez, who, you know, blew the save on Friday, but at the same time, like, in every outing he's had, it's felt shaky. And there's a lot of people who won't get this reference, and I should be able to come with a better reference. I'm actually disappointed in myself. But it reminds me of the Jenmar Gomez year where, like, he was just pitching to contact, wasn't striking anyone out, and it just happened to be right at guys. The one year that Jenmar Gomez was, like, good. So, like, Estevez is better. He's got better stuff. But, like, the price they paid, and this is the whole point around the trade deadline. Like, this is the whole point around the trade deadline when people got mad at me for saying that they paid too much for the guy. You paid a premium for a pretty good. Like, you didn't get a lockdown 9th inning kind of closure. You got a guy that can do it. You know, he's had a really good year, but you look at the fly ball rate, high. You look at the walk rate, career low. You look at the strikeout rate, that's down. You look at pitching in Los Angeles, which we're Anaheim, Orange County, as they say, no pressure. Like, it's worrisome. And I don't have any confidence heading into the 9th inning with a lead that Carlos Estevez is going to be able to hold that. So, you know, in a night where you don't have Hoffman and Strahm, by the way, feels like we're going to have to, like, pitch them almost every single night. Kerkering, they're giving a little bit of rest to. You know, he's got to earn my trust again. I think his last appearance, he started throwing more and more fastballs. He's starting to see some of that two-seam run come back, which is really, 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 really important. It's just, man, from the first half where the bullpen was like, I'm not even stressed. You know how weird that is? To feel with the Phillies bullpen where you're not even stressed about what they're doing. Like, that's what they were like in the first half. And where we're at now, it's right back to where it was during the down period where I don't know who I can trust when they come in besides Strahm and Hoffman. And even those two are maybe leaking some oil right now. So it's definitely a little bit worrisome. You know, I think the team is more back than not. I think the team meeting was really important. I think it woke some guys up and they got some guys locked in. and I think ultimately they'll be better off for it. Cannot wait for the series down in Atlanta. We'll see what happens with Austin Riley. I know he left the game earlier today with the hit by pitch. So with their injury luck, who knows? But that's obviously going to be a desperate team looking to play spoiler with the Phillies and try to get back into this division race. But I do want to, before we get to some mailbag questions here, again, you can get them in and Tucker will piece through the best ones. We got to talk about the ninth inning today, because what annoyed me about the ninth inning today is, first off, you're pitching Jeff Hoffman in a game you're losing by 1, which I appreciate. Like I appreciate pitching him in that game, attempting or giving it your best shot to keep it a 1-run game so that you can come back in the ninth. And I don't know if by allowing a run there and making a 2-run deficit versus a 1-run deficit, if that scared Rob Thompson off of using Bryce Harper or JT Realmuto. But if I'm going to use my best, and I'm going to be in a tie game and then in a game where I'm losing and I'm clearly being aggressive, I do not understand how you cannot use Bryce Harper in that situation. Like Cal Stevenson is a AAA player. Garrett Stubbs is a AAA player. Like, give the team a chance. Like, I appreciate getting these guys off their feet. I appreciate load management, because I do think that over 162, it matters, and it's helped in the postseason where other teams have played their guys almost every single day. But it's an at-bat. It is a chance to tie the ball game up or go ahead. Like, it's not some grueling kind of run. It's trying to give your team a chance to win a ball game, especially with, you have the team meeting, you have momentum, like everything feels like it's being righted in the world, and you just pull the plug on it. Like, they just pull the plug. They're like, nah, we're on to Atlanta. No, like it's the mentality that I don't like. It's the mentality. Like you're creating, and this is, Rob Thompson has created a winning atmosphere. They've won at a ridiculous rate in the regular season with Rob Thompson as the manager. But we're trying to create a culture of, we're going to win every single game. And you have a team meeting on Tuesday or Wednesday talking about how every game matters. And you pitch guys where they're pitching a ton, and then you just say no in the bottom of the ninth. Like, it just doesn't add up to me. Now, in Rob Thompson's defense, and we'll see if this happens or see if there's anything there, or maybe it was just a day. I mean, Bryce Harper was wearing a tape over his hand on Saturday, I believe. So maybe something's happening with the wrist, whatever. I understand it more to get JT off of his seat for a full day and don't even put on your spikes, because like JT wants to get in there and kind of do his thing. But like, it was such an obvious, like, go to Bryce. Just go to Bryce. When they said Cal Stevenson's going to hit, I was floored. It was like, what are we doing here? And by the way, if Bryce Harper walked or singled or doubled, I don't know, that Johan Rojas could have easily run for him, and you didn't have to put him in the game if you're worried about like getting him off his feet. But to just kind of throw in the towel, I don't get that one bit. And like, for a team that is trying to, now it sounds funny to say a team needs to pull itself out of like the funk they've been, like when they're 73-51, but they've been playing at a malaise for about 6 weeks. And again, like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, you just had a team meeting talking about how every game matters. We got to be more locked in. Like, it's go time. You're the final 40-some games of the season to right the ship here, and to just punt. I can't. I don't like it. I like getting guys rest days, but holy cow! Like, if you have a chance to tie the ball game and give your team an opportunity to win, you got to give them the shot. And like, you're telling me that, and this is like one of the things when we're talking about managing a clubhouse, is I'm sure Bryce is annoyed. Like, I'm sure Bryce isn't happy that he wasn't given the opportunity. Like, I'm sure he's like, hey, thanks, Rob. Like, I get the off day. I appreciate it. But, like, also give me a chance. Like put me in. And, like, we all remember what happened with Knebel down in Atlanta when they all called Joe Girardi and were like, hey, like, I can go. Let me go. We got to get this win. And he put in Nick Nelson, and they blew it right after Bryce Harper hit a big home run. Like, I think he's playing with a little bit of fire here. That's 2 times. I mean, if you want to go back into the first time with the Garrett Stubbs thing, where it's like, what are we doing here? He's not really a major leaguer. Like, we know why Garrett Stubbs is here. So, man, it was a frustrating one, and it was one that, I think made it even more frustrating because, Ruben Amaro was on the station this week, and he was like, yeah, I that won't happen again. And then 3 days later, it happened. It totally happened. So it was a frustrating one, and, hopefully it doesn't carry over. I just think that, you put yourself in a chance to win that game. You ride that momentum into Atlanta, into the stretch they have, and you kind of have it carry over and see how far it takes you. So was definitely disappointed, and I just really hope that, again, final thing, and then we'll get to mailbag questions, I promise. But, there's a lot of things like, oh, there goes Rob Thompson asleep at the wheel. Like, you think that he's forgot that Bryce Harper was on his baseball team? Like, no. Like, Rob Thompson's not asleep at the wheel. Like, obviously he knows that Bryce Harper is just sitting there and is a better option than Cal Stevenson. This is a plan. It's a plan. And the plan needs to be adjusted. All right. Tucker, what would you say is the first best mailbag question to get to? Vincent D. Jack, does Banks surpass Alvarado as the number 2 lefty bullpen piece in the playoffs? I was all banked up. I was like, man, Tanner Banks might be something. I loved what Dave Dombrowski said about, they've been trying to get him for a couple of years, and his staff, his analytics department, I guess, really, really liked him. And I do like that he throws strikes. I like that he's competitive, but honestly, it's a complete toss-up. I don't think that Banks can get strikeouts the way that Alvarado should be able to. My big hope is that Alvarado can kind of, and I know this is like contradicting what I said earlier about pitching his way out of it. I would try to find a way to sit him for a little bit and see if you can get some of the velocity back, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So, I think that it's really just a toss-up. I think Banks could, but I guess if you're asking me at this moment, it's still Alvarado, but I am watching that inning with my hands over my eyes for sure. All right, what's next? From Lisa. What's going on, Lisa? Who is your ideal fifth starter? Like, for this year? Like, I mean, in a perfect world, it's someone like Taijuan Walker. It's just that, I mean, the guy, he's not even giving him innings anymore. Like, he's going 4 1/3 or 4 2/3 versus like 6 or 7 innings at 4-run ball. So that's the big issue. It's gonna be curious what they do there. So obviously Rangers coming back soon. They sent down Tyler Phillips. They brought up Tyler Gilbert. Feels like more of a long relief option. We'll see if he starts a game. The big name to watch out for is Mick Abel. If they need another starter. But I think when Ranger comes back, you're gonna have year 5, and Taijuan Walker, you got to kind of eat it every 5th day he's out there and hope that he has a splitter or something that day. But it is a pretty excruciating watch. Like, on one hand, I feel bad for him because I just don't think he has it anymore. On the other hand, it's just like, what are we doing here? So it feels like one of those things in the offseason where they try to eat the contract or eat as much as they can to get out from under it, because I don't know how next year you come back, you have those 4 guys still in your rotation outside of like a trade, which I don't think would happen, and then you have Andrew Painter just ready to go. Andrew Painter on opening day next year should be in the rotation unless something kind of goes wrong. I don't think they'd play the service time game with them because they were going to have him in the rotation like last year. So, Painter's going to be in there. If Mick Abel continues to pitch really well and has a good offseason, maybe he's in there. Like, they have a bunch of options that I think that are more intriguing and are possible future rotation pieces. So Taijuan Walker feels like we are watching the end of the Simon Walker era, and I don't think that we're going to be getting tweets of him in the postseason, wondering why he's not pitching in postseason ball. But what a frustrating time. All right, what is next? From Evan. Jack, do you buy the idea of platooning Stott and Sosa? I know Stott had the home run today, but overall he's struggling. Yeah, I think I was surprised. I was surprised the first two games of this series, and maybe it was like a last-ditch kind of effort of being like, all right, we're going to give you these shots against lefties and see what you do with them. And it's the Nationals. We should beat them anyway, but maybe this kind of gets you going. And he had the home run today. That was good. The bat looked quick. But it's just been a lot of not like last year Stott kind of at bats. It's funny. I was looking up his numbers from last year, and it's like you forget. I mean, he's a 280 hitter with 15 home runs. Like it's at second base. That's just phenomenal. Like you take that every single day of the week. So, and I think that was with a pretty bad September, if I remember. Like he was hitting close to 300 before that. So my big hope with Stott is that it's just a lost year. It's just guys go through this all the time. Burrell had a big beginning to his career, and then really had a bad third or fourth year in the league. And he got it back. I don't know if he's ever lived up to the hype as the number one overall pick, but young players sometimes just have that awful year where the league just figures them out, or they're trying new things. And that's what this kind of year feels like for Stubbs. So I'm definitely pro playing Sosa against lefties. Every time he's out there, I feel like he does something really well defensively. He's as good as Stott, although Stott made a really, really good play today late in the game to keep it within reason. So I think that Friday and Thursday and Friday were like all right, here's your shot, and after this weekend, I think they go more platoon. What's next? Do you think Turnbull could come back in October? They transferred him to the 60 day, so I don't think so. I mean, I guess in a perfect world, maybe, but I mean, you're getting pretty close at that point. So yeah, I'm pretty sure putting him on the 60 day, ends it. Maybe is maybe I don't know. I don't think so, which is a shame because Spencer Turnbull, obviously with the first month of the season, first month and a half was one of the best pitchers in the NL, and then Taijuan comes back, they feel like they got to take him out of the rotation, and it just stinks from the standpoint of again, he's on a major league deal, but it's for the minimum pretty much. He still had options and stuff, and he was pitching his way into a pretty good contract, and now that's obviously not going to happen. I mean, I think a team's going to definitely take a shot on him. I think that he's going to get I would think a multi-year offer, but again, he was pitching his way into some pretty serious money. I don't think it'll be the Phils. I don't think it'll be them. But I think that he's going to get a pretty okay contract this offseason. I think someone's going to take a shot on him, and maybe he can kind of take what he learned here and translate that to somewhere else. But I think that we've seen the last of Spencer Turnbull in a Phillies uniform, which stinks because, again, having another kind of righty arm out of the bullpen that can give you some length and maybe, take some stress off of Stroman Hoffman for a little bit would be really, really big. I never really bought he could be a one-inning high leverage guy, but I thought at worst he could be like a multi-inning guy that would provide some value if they were up or down a little bit. And we'll see where he ends up next year. But Spencer Turnbull was a pretty good signing by the Phils, and it's just unfortunate that it didn't really work out. All right, what's next? Michael Hurlbut just joined. Sorry if you already touched on it, but once we get through the next 2 or 3 weeks, how would you manage Sanchez, Strom, Hoffman, and Kirk? Phantom ILs innings are adding up for all. You're 100% right. I mean, that's the big fear, and that's why today was so frustrating with the ninth, where it's like, hold on, you're using all these guys, you're pushing them, don't just sit Bryce Harper in the ninth inning. You don't have to do that. So, again, maybe there's an injury there that they want to just make sure he's done for the day. I don't know. But it was frustrating. So, I think there could be some Phantom IL stuff. they did this in 22. They put Sir Anthony on the IL. They put Alvarado on the IL. They put Ranger. They put Wheeler. They really managed those guys. Like last year, they didn't do it as much. But, this year with the division lead, and that's why, again, these next couple of days against Atlanta are really big because you can bury them. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they it's not like a huge take. I think they're going to try to win these games. But, I think that they're going to be really aggressive in trying to bury them so that they can manage those guys' innings. They can bring up some guys from AAA. Maybe that's where we get the Griffs of the world. I think there's an opportunity if you can bury them this week, create more separation to where you can kind of piecemeal this thing and get them back mid-September and really just make sure that they're honed in for the postseason. But the way that it is right now, with how a lot of those guys are throwing, it's very, very. If we're projecting to October and we're thinking about playoff series, it's my biggest fear. No doubt about it. Like, offense kind of is what it is, but I think they look more consistent. Rotation, really good, but they're going to have to start giving them some real length. I don't know who I trust in that bullpen outside of Stroman Hoffman, and we've seen those two have struggles in the last 2 weeks, and that's my big issue. So if they can manage that and be smart and not ride them into the ground, it's imperative. And, something that Brian Kaplan and Caleb Coughlin have been really, really good with. So I anticipate them to do the same here. All right, what's next? Odds on Mick Abel making his Major League debut in any capacity in 2024 from Andrew. It's tough. I feel pretty good about it. I do. Like, is it because I started having visions of Mick Abel and Kingery, kind of saving the season here and having some big moments? Yeah, I'll be completely honest. It's 100% true. But Mick Abel more than Kingery, obviously. He's still walking a good amount of people, which I don't love. But the stuff just plays. The stuff pops. And the fastball, while it's not the most consistent command-wise, there's clearly a different level of stuff than even like a Mercado or a Tyler Phillips, or if we ever see Logan Gilbert pitch, I don't think we're going to be blown away. I appreciate the no-hitter he threw at the Diamondbacks, but I think that Mick Abel has a little bit more stuff. So I think I think they want to be smart with it. I don't think they want to just put him out there as a test run. There might have to be some things to happen. I'll put it at 20%. That he makes his debut, but we'll see. All right, what do you got? Who will likely be called up on September 1st? I don't know. I mean, I would assume Cody Clemens. It's always Cody Clemens. Maybe they bring up Marchand and to save them from the Stubbs appearances in the ninth inning of close games. Maybe they bring up Marchand, but it's definitely a little bit different than the 40-man rosters that I believe Gabe Kapler made Major League Baseball change. With I don't know, pulling guys in the second inning of baseball games. I mean, Gabe hurt baseball there for a couple of years with what he's doing with the September Phils. But, I would assume it's one of those guys. And, I mean, we'll see what happens to Cal Stevenson here. I'm so sorry to Joe in the Northeast, but don't think he's the difference maker. I don't think he should be batting leadoff and is really a real piece. Jack, this is from John. Jack, it's because that one guy keeps calling to the afternoon show about Cal Stevenson. Yeah, dude, he's got to be humbled, right? I mean, it's got to be over. Love Joe in the Northeast. Love passionate baseball calls. Love, I watched this guy at Lehigh Valley. Trust me, one of my favorite kind of calls. But can't play. I mean, congrats on making the big leagues. But from that perspective, can't really play. So I'm shocked that the guy with hitting over 300 with a 420 OBP in AAA is not a Major League Baseball player. But we've been burned by it. I mean, Jake Cave was raking in AAA, Dahl was raking in AAA, and Cal Stevenson was raking in AAA. Some guys are what they are. Those guys have been around for a good amount of time. They just are what they are. What's next? Alex Call, what is the conversation after a series loss in Atlanta? Well, we don't have to get too dark here, but I don't want them to go down and get swept. Am I asking for 1 of 3? Sure. Would I be thrilled with 2 of 3? It obviously depends how the games go. I would be shocked. Now, this could come back to bite me, but I would be shocked if they go down and they just lay down. They just lay down and don't really show up. We'll see who starts Tuesday. I think it's going to be Wheeler, but there were some questions about that earlier today. I didn't see anything post game, but I just they showed me enough in the last couple games to believe that the toughness is back, the resilience that we mocked on Tuesday night, that feels more back than not. And as long as they don't go down and roll over and it turns into the Diamondback series, I would think people are going to be okay. This is a desperate series for the Braves. They need it. Phil's in a pretty good spot, but obviously you're going to want to go down there and be competitive. But I think I would hope that if they go down and take 1 of 3, they don't get swept, they play close. I don't think it's going to be Meltdown City, but obviously things can change. So we'll see. But I feel pretty good. The Braves, we have this boogeyman thing with the Braves. They've been different for a majority of the season. I mean, I was watching them last night versus the A's or the Angels, and they're talking about we really miss what Ron Washington brings to this clubhouse. And it's I agree. I think I said that earlier this year, but snap out of it. we gotta lock in here. But we'll see. I don't want to wake the sleeping giant that could be the Braves, but this feels like a different kind of Braves year. All right, what's next? Thoughts on Christopher Sanchez era? Wow, it's good. Bad work by me. Thoughts on Christopher Sanchez's ERA being drastically higher on the road? I mean, listen, there's comfortability to pitching at home for sure. I mean, that's something that I think everyone experiences. I think that it's not as dire. It's not like he's unpitchable on the road. I mean, he did just go 6 or 7 against the Dodgers, allowing 2 runs, and looked like the Chris Sanchez that we've seen for majority of the season. Obviously, he's had some blow-ups. He's had worse starts on the road. The thing that I'm going to find interesting is heading into the postseason, if they have a home series and they have the first 2 games at home, I mean, who gives you a better chance to win that game too? Is it Nola or is it Chris Sanchez? And if you're asking me right now, it's Chris Sanchez. Now, they didn't pay Chris Sanchez $172 million like they did Aaron Nola, but at the same time, if Wheeler puts you up 1-0, you have Chris Sanchez who pitches to an ERA under 2 at home and over 4 on the road, versus Nola who's fine either way. It's going to be a conversation. I think it's going to 100% be a conversation, and it's something to definitely monitor. But I think it's more, again, just the comfortability of pitching at home. It's your ballpark, and he has had moments on the road. But yeah, definitely it's something to monitor as we head into the postseason. What's next? Jack, if you're up 8 on the Braves, better to have some off days and keep expectations low and surprise people later than try to build momentum and ramp things up in September. Trust in Rob Thompson. Yeah, sure. I think that's definitely an optimistic way to look at it. I don't view today as some kind of season ender or deal breaker. It was just disappointing that it felt like they were going for it. It's just an at-bat for Bryce Harper. And, the mentality of, if we don't, we don't. I just don't really love. And I think when you're talking about creating a resiliency, you talk about creating we're going to fight to the end, to kind of just throw in the white towel or the white flag. I just don't love the mentality more than anything. I get why they do it, but from that standpoint, it was disappointing. But yeah, I'm cool with the expectations. Again, I said this when they were going through their slump. Now it got a little egregious where it was 6 weeks of just brutal baseball, and coming out of the All-Star break, just brutal. But it's a tough balance because obviously people watch every game, they want them to win and they care, but you also don't want them quote unquote peaking right now. I just don't know how much that matters. In 2022, they collapsed. they 100% collapsed in the second half of the season, or in September, And they got bailed out by the Marlins going and beating the Brewers in 3 out of 4, winning 3 out of 4 in Milwaukee. And it set up a situation where all they had to do was go in one game in Houston, and they're in. And then they went to the World Series. It's not like oh, all these benchmark series. Oh, they have to beat the Braves. They have to beat the Astros. Like, ultimately, it comes down to whether or not the team can flip a switch in October. Does it matter how they're playing heading into it? I don't think it really does, and the fact that at least this week they were able to pull themselves out of the doldrums, I think was important. So, again, I mentioned this when they were struggling, but then it got too much and it was like, oh my God, figure it out. I didn't really want the wins record. I didn't want 108 wins or 110 wins. I don't think that having the most wins in the regular season matters all that much. I want a World Series title. So, it's a tough balance. I think sometimes we go a little bit overboard and they have to be playing their best baseball in September. I would like it, but at the same time, either they're going to get in, they're going to get hot, they're going to look like the team that we've seen for a majority of the last 2 postseasons, or they're not. It stinks, but that's kind of the reality of the situation. I think that people just create these kind of benchmarks the team has to clear in their eyes or in their head. But when it comes down to it, if the other team just outpitches you and you can't hit for 3 days in October, bang, it's over. So you just have to hope you can avoid that. And that's why winning the division and trying to get the 1 seed or 2 seed and avoiding having to play in the wild card round so big so you can at least extend it. And, in a 5-game series, I feel pretty good about the Phillies' chances. Tucker, what do we have? One more here that would make sense? Thoughts on the Cy Young race? I mean, I thought Skeensy was gonna kind of get in there, and I think he was plus 1,200. I was like, wow, it's a good time to get him. He's kind of fallen off. Wheeler, I think, is gonna pitch his way right into it. But Chris Sale, man, I'm so mad. I was looking at it before the season. I was like, of course, the Braves of all team are gonna have the throwback Chris Sale kind of season. He's going to pitch to a Cy Young. So feels like a Sale, Wheeler, Skeens kind of final 3 here. And hopefully, Wheeler can figure it out because, I got him plus 900 for the Cy Young. I would like to have that one pay out. But either way, thanks for hanging out with me. It's a long solo pod. That's on me, Donovan Chestbat. But I appreciate everyone kind of hanging out, reacting to what was an annoying game today, but overall a successful homestand, winning 4-2 and having the real team meeting to kind of ignite the team and have them moving in the right direction. And huge series in Atlanta. I think we'll be back Tuesday morning with the high hopes, but I just want to make sure that we got something out there because, listen, we got to talk Phils. I think Seltzer's, again, still at his Fish concert. So we'll let him enjoy his time, and I'm sure he's going to be up and ready to go on Tuesday morning. But thanks for hanging out, Tucker. Appreciate you. High Hopes, as always, presented by Miller Lite. Speaking of that, definitely should have mentioned this in the beginning. That's on me. But Thursday, we are at the Trap Tavern in Trap, PA /Collegeville. Great spot, fun spot, always a great time. Seltzer and I will be there hanging out, watching the Phils. So come on out, come hang out with us and enjoy some Miller Lite specials and all of that good stuff. So hopefully we see you Thursday. Hopefully they don't crap their pants in Atlanta. I say 1 of 3. I know a lot of people want 2 of 3. Would die for 2 of 3. But just don't embarrass yourself. Don't do what you did in Arizona. That's all I care about. But thanks for hanging out, and talk to you soon.